What's going on, people? Thank you again for joining me on another stream. This is our 3P, I believe. So we're 3 nights in. Hold on, the light's kind of making it look like I have a dent in my head. It is what it is. Thank you guys for joining me. My name is Jermaine L. Murray, also known as the Jobfather. I am a career coach and recruiter. And if you've been with me for the last 2 nights, this being the third, I thank you for sharing the time. And this is really distracting. I'm just gonna move my desk. Okay, that's much better. It looked like I had a dent in my head. I've been doing these lives for the last couple of nights in an effort to just have a bit more transparency on, what goes into making the Jupiter crater. Y'all are arms. um, just make a bit more sense into what goes into making a really good resume. I've had people from the community send me resumes from all around the world, and we've actually been able to help a lot of people do a better job on making a successful resume. So tonight we're gonna continue on, with our resume activities. But I decided that because we kept running into the issue of running out of time, I've extended the stream today by an extra 30 minutes. So we'll try to get through as many resumes as possible. Some people even went as far as submitting questions for the live stream, which I do appreciate quite a bit. And I will actually also read those questions and we can get started. But if you're coming in through the stream, what we always like to do is we like to wait for 100 people to get on so that we have enough eyes. This is also an open forum as well. So, don't be shy. If you have a question, whether it's about the resume, but if whether it's about the resumes or whether it's about your careers, don't be shy. Please ask away. This is a safe space. There are no stupid questions. Unless you ask me something like, yo, can Bloods own crypto? Then that will be a stupid question. That was something my brother asked me, and it was a very entertaining conversation. Um, had our first question from Izzy Pokemon. Love the name. Uh, the resumes will be on screen. And in order for somebody's resume to be on screen, we've asked them to scrub it of all information. So, we're super serious about privacy here as well. And we wanted to make sure that people aren't putting themselves at jeopardy, if for nothing else than like prank calls are literally the worst. So I wanted to make sure that we're clear on that. Um, so a couple of questions that have been asked. I'm going to answer a couple. And like I said, if you're in the chat watching, feel free to ask questions away. We do take some time in between of every few resumes to answer the chats in the question. But one of the first questions that we got from the spreadsheet, from the form, was pivoting from one career to another with limited experience, how to interpret it in a resume to get an interview. So this is a question that I think a lot of people have when they're trying to figure out how to get into tech, for example, right? When you have limited experience, how do you leverage that experience to actually get your first job in tech, especially in a market like this? And my answer is always going to be two things. One, you need to identify what you've done in the past that overlaps and is relevant to the role that you're trying to go into. And you need to see like if you have actual projects and achievements in that domain. Barring that, you need to double down on developing projects and also finding ways to work with stakeholders. Stakeholders could be consulting clients, stakeholders could be friends, it could be small businesses. But if you think about like whenever somebody graduates from school, one of the biggest challenges people have fresh out of university is being able to get that first job. And the reason is because like unless and I wish universities did a much better job when it came to this, but um, I feel like there's not a big enough emphasis on how important internships are, and not just like getting any regular internship, but an actual, good internship, because that experience stacks. And that is what a lot of people that you see, transition or get their first jobs out of school are able to like leverage to get that job, the experience there. And if you don't have that experience, you got to go out and get it on your own. And stacking up that experience, being able to talk through it, being able to do interesting projects is what's going to allow you to transition into tech, or at least have an easier time. There is this hoop dream that like you can find a company that might be able to like show you and like teach you the ropes. Do not rely on that, especially in a market like this that's becoming less and less a likelihood. So fall back on being able to take initiative and agency over yourself and your skill development. Thank you so much for that question, Denaldi. Appreciate you. Clinton's asking, submitted the resume through a form. So Clinton, that isn't in the queue for for these forum questions. I will send you a message, and you can submit your resume through the proper channel where it's going through all the emails. These are just for just general interview questions. We do have a pretty big queue to get through today, and probably going to have like 2 or 3 more of these sessions just to get through the whole entire bunch. I believe when we first started, we had like 65, and now we're down to 37, and some more keep popping in. So, question from Courtney: I'm a broadcast journalist looking to transition to tech. I have strong writing skills and other skills. I'm interested in project management. Could I please have some advice on what to do? So, I would say that um, it comes to twofold. Like one, if you are completely like over journalism as an actual career, then I would say that you would be better off looking at things that are more heavy into writing. Project management is like a good leadway into that. Um, but I don't necessarily think that, depending on like what timeline you want to do, you might have to do like a course. Like our friends over at Skill Hat have a really good course that's going on right now. If you go to skillhat.ca/jobfather, you can get a discount on the course in itself. But you need to, again, emphasize your project management skills when it came to delivering multimedia projects. So I would even look at being a multimedia project manager before anything else. And then when it comes to like those writing skills, you could do everything from email marketing to content writing. You could do everything around lifecycle marketing, potentially product marketing management. Like there are a lot of people that have like a journalist background that are able to leverage that media experience and go into like further into like the tech realm without having it to be like PM. So I would insist on kind of doing research on those skills. And you know what? To even be real with you, there is a heavy PR element when it comes to tech as well. And as somebody that's a journalist, depending on like what kind of like if you're doing any data visualization, you might even want to look at like working in ethics, especially with regards where AI is covered. That's going to be a big thing going forward for a lot of company governance, risk, and compliance, or even just AI ethics. So I would check those domains first, Courtney. And then, as I said, you want to build up a portfolio of some kind. Thanks for coming through. Um, let's see. Clinton again, used to work at the Apple Store before pivoting into UX. I think this experience is useful to include in the resume? I think a lot of the skills there are transferable. Yes and no. Um, for a UX, the most important thing is going to be your portfolio first and foremost. And I would say if you like a way that you could leverage those skills or transferable skills would be around designing custom solutions for customers, maybe around like workaround plans, or maybe like drawing up learning and development plans for like helping people transition from Windows to Mac, or helping older people figuring out like the best use of their new equipment. But when it comes to UX, especially if I'm understanding like a UX, like you just said UX, so it could be UI UX designer, it could be UX writer. I'm going to assume it's the former. Your portfolio is going to be doing much of the heavy lifting. What if I have internship experience that doesn't relate to the role I'm applying for? It was a outreach. Um, Ignore the part after the question mark. Sure. You're applying for. So I would say if the experience isn't relevant, then it's not relevant. You would have to again double down and getting your own project experience. because again, it's like saying, like, you worked as a cashier and you're going for a software engineering job, and if you had nothing to do with coding, it's not going to be really relevant to the role unless you were like directly working with that specific project. So that doesn't mean that the internship stuff wasn't good. If I was in your shoes, I would see like what tech companies are working in an industry similar to like where the internship was. Like, i.e., I interned at a radio station, right? And if I was looking to get into tech with that radio station experience, I would be looking at podcast networks because they operate very similar to radio stations, whether that would be like working on the equipment or like a place like Squadcast, right? I might be able to do a really good job as like a customer success manager because I work firsthand with the equipment and the tools, and I know exactly what the customers are looking to do and like what would be successful for them and how to like encourage them to like use the product better. So I would say, if it's not relevant, it's not going to get you far. Let's see here. How do we feel about summaries at the top of the resume? I hate summaries. I think they're a waste of space, and they ironically come where the most valuable real estate for the resume is. One thing that you'll see in these resume reviews is that I absolutely like. It's very rare that I'm happy with a professional summary, and the reason being is because I feel like especially if you're trying to transition to a different career path, I feel like what you're trying to achieve on the professional summary is what you could just achieve with a pretty good cover letter. And I hate cover letters. So like that shows you how like low I think of professional summaries. If I would say I'd rather do a cover letter before doing a professional summary. So I would say focus on like if you want to communicate the transferable skills or like why you'd be a good fit for the role, focus on that in a cover letter in itself, not on the professional summary. Okay, last question before we jump into the actual resumes. Is that Avon and Sugar Bell in your icon? All right, rate it. I'm a huge Wire fan. Can you speak on AWS certs and what mid-level jobs you can get with them? Certs don't get you jobs. Certs do not get you jobs. Certs give you a foundation to build on, and the stuff you do on that foundation may lead to you getting the job. But certs just serve as a nice base for you to be introduced into the material. It can help in terms of adding credibility to stuff that you've done retroactively. Like in a lot of cases, you'll be at work and like you'll have you do projects, and those projects maybe outside of your domain, but maybe they're related to like AWS because you're working with AWS or you're working with a team that was building out an AWS product. And that cert can retroactively validate your experience. And that is project experience you can talk on your resume about. But the cert by itself is not going to do anything for you in terms of getting you a mid-level career job, much less, not even an entry-level job, much less a mid-level career one. All right. Thank you so much, folks. As I said, continue asking questions in the chat. I will, again, be answering them through and through in between every few resumes as well. But let's jump into some resumes. Let's talk what some good resumes are. Let's talk what some bad ones are. Again, unless you're asking about like that stupid crypto question my brother was hitting me with, there are no stupid questions. So I'm gonna share my screen, and I see some folks are asking questions in the chat. We will get to you afterwards. All right. So our first resume is for an IT business analyst, right? And just going through, I always like to see how many pages the resume is. Now, I've talked about this before. I'm okay with resumes up to 3 pages, but you always got to remember that the first page is always the most important page. That is the page that is going to get you visibility. It's going to form an opinion or a first impression on the hiring manager or the recruiter or the person writing it, right? So just know that there's diminishing returns when you go past that first page to the second and the third. And if you have, I think it was that like yesterday, we had a couple of 8-page resumes. Those are wild. Nobody wants to go through those. So 3 pages is the absolute max. And if you have less than 5 years of experience, you don't need to go past 2 pages. You might not even need to go past one. So just off the bat, 3 pages is all right. I'm okay with the template that we have here in terms of how the information is spread. I do hate professional summaries, and like I said, this is a bunch of generic stuff as well. If we read through it, like a seasoned professional with 10 years of experience in banking, debt collection, payments, research, and software development environments, possesses a proven track record of successfully delivering complex and large-scale industry projects with various and exposure in software development methodologies, as well as collaborating with geographical distributed teams. So there are some interesting stuff in there, but honestly, most of it kind of reads as fluff. You can give better context in a cover letter. So one of my first things would be like just the professional or the background out. I'm not the biggest fan of the skills being all the way down here. I think that you should move them up here towards the top, because the way that it should flow, it should be like the skills or the key skills highlight the key skills highlight the it gives context to like the relevant skills that I may be searching for. And then the actual experience shows examples of how you use those skills successfully in the workplace. So having them all the way at the bottom here to me doesn't really do you much. So like it's better if you move it up. Now, the actual employment experience, so I'm okay with the spacing here is kind of weird. I'm not gonna lie. Like this might be just me being a little bit picky, but I think that there would be a better opportunity to more or less make things a little bit more condensed than like how we have them here. I do like the idea of having the website. As I mentioned, I'm a big fan of having a company overview. So like just like a sentence or two of like what the company is, what they do, what like where their presence is, or like how big their client base is, would also do like really, really well. But when in doubt, at the very least, put a hyperlink so that I can click on it and I can get an idea or an impression of what the actual organization is. Now, I will say too, um, you got to make sure that website looks good though. Like if you put a hyperlink and it goes to like a crappy looking website, people are gonna like look at you, look at your experience in a kind of like a different light. And this is all a very subjective thing, and it's all based on impressions. So like if the company's website looks like it was put together by like the CEO's 17-year-old nephew, just put a company overview, skip the website. Senior feature analyst, scrum master, the years are all right. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of how some of these bullet points are. Again, I'm big on quantifiers, right? Whether they're absolute numbers, talking about how many of something, dollars, ratios, right? Percentages with the proper context, um, rankings, something to kind of give me an idea of like the impact, the scope, or the scale, or just those quantifiers are important because it helps us understand like how good you are in your job, or like for lack of a better phrasing, it helps us understand why we should be giving you props, and like why, like it makes sure that you get proper credit for how crazy like your work actually is and the effort you put into doing a good job there, right? So this is just very, very generic, and it doesn't really set you up for success here, right? Even if you mention like you built a new team to service business partners, right? Either tell me how many people are on the team, or tell me some of the business partners. I always say that name dropping is corny 99% of the time in life. The 1% where name dropping is not corny is your resume, right? So make sure that you are, again, adding quantifiers in here. And I'm going to break my own little rule because Izzy is asking a really good question. What do you do if you can't recall specific quantifiables from older positions, right? So you can, like, if you don't have access directly to, like, say, your dashboard reports for your quantifiers, the next best thing is to talk about the scope of the company in itself, right? So like Standard Bank, like I can easily Google right now, bank, how big is Standard Bank, right? Uh, is Standard Bank. And Standard Bank is Africa's biggest lender by assets, right? It's on the stock market. It's an 8.6 billion US dollar company, and its assets are a total of 142.9 billion, right? So right away, you can use those company statistics, right, to kind of talk about or give some idea of the scope of the work that you're doing, right? So this sentence might read, built a led and built a new team of 900 personnel to service the bank's major business partners' needs for special clients such as the Nelson Mandela Foundation, such as the government of Nigeria, et cetera, et cetera, and channeling resources to meet deadlines, right? So that kind of quantifier there really, really helps. If you're working in marketing, going on your company's social media, like their public social media, and like across all spectrums, just adding up the raw followers that they have is a good way to get quantifiers as well. If they're a publicly traded company, right, they actually have to release reports, fiscal reports every fiscal year about the performance of their products and services. Like when in doubt, go hunt down the fiscal reports, right? Go hunt down the valuations. Use that for your quantifiers when in doubt, right? And if you don't have individual quantifiers, see if you can talk about like team quantifiers as well. Led the discovery of designing end-to-end solutions of as is and to be scenarios by using efficient methodologies and ensuring qualitative outputs. This bullet has a lot of potential, right? Because I do like the contrast between as is and to be scenarios, but it's incomplete because of how generic it is. If you think about some of the resumes that I've been reviewing, especially around percentages, I've always been encouraging people to talk about like year to date, month over month, month to date, year over year, some sort of framework, right? To kind of give us a time of reference, right? So if you are talking about end-to-end solutions as is and to be scenarios, I need to know like either a percentage or like, I just need to know some context of like where things are and where you hope to move them to, right? So if you're saying like, you lead the discovery of designing end-to-end solutions with the aim of moving the solutions resolution from 3 months to 2 weeks, that's a quantifier that I need to know. And that's why this feels incomplete, because it's like, yo, you're almost there, but you're so close yet so far. Word to Lincoln Park. Um, Incorporate business strategy into technical roadmaps. Like this is all very, very, very vague. Let's see if there are other examples throughout the experience that does a little bit more of what I'm talking about. And as I'm going through this, not really, right? Um, Provided technical support to South African banks, industry products, and incidents during solutions, development cycle, credit and debit card. So, like, I feel like even here, Southern African banking industries, like even like doing a little bit of research and trying to figure out like how big those products are would go a long way to you being able to contextualize this right here, right? And like Bank Serve Africa, I've heard of Bank Serve Africa. That's a huge bank, right? Connects South African payment system as the largest automated clearinghouse in South Africa. It's been around since 1972, right? So like you can definitely dig up a lot of information on BankServe just based on like how long they've been around. Um, I'm even just on their Wikipedia, and that has their shareholders right there. So going through, this is the only quantifier we have in the whole entire resume, and it is on the third page, all the way at the bottom, for experience that happened almost 10 years ago. Consulted clients to present project milestones, delivered 95% satisfaction of allocated startups. This in itself is still too vague because, like, if you're going to mention startups, mention the startups. Tell me what kind of startups you had, right? Especially if some of them turn into some bigger players down the road, like you're doing yourself a disservice here, right? Now when it comes to the education stuff, I think this is all fine. And I think it at the bottom is a really good call. This may be more particular to when you're searching for jobs on the African continent, but generally speaking, I would get rid of the personal details as well. That's stuff that they could find on your LinkedIn. So looking at this resume, I'd give it about a 6 out of 10. Decent format. It's easy to read, like the hyperlinks to the websites, but I don't like how there are little to no achievements or quantifiers. I don't know how good you are. And that in itself is a big problem. That this doesn't do the job that we need it to do. All right. So let's load up the next one. And while I am doing that, I'm going to take a couple of questions. So we got here Santa. Hey, how you doing? Thank you for coming through for another episode. I know that you mentioned about giving a brief overview of each company. What if the company is self-explanatory? For example, a seafood restaurant. You still want to like no two companies are like so similar that like it's just a catch-all. Like even if you were saying like Red Lobster, I would say like I would give her an example of like which specific franchise, where it's located, and how busy the foot traffic is. You know what I'm saying? Like you still like I feel like the only ones that are self-explanatory are the super famous ones like Google or Yahoo or Facebook or LinkedIn. Like that those are self-explanatory. Like those got big brands, but straight up seafood restaurants that I may never even heard of, right? You should still give like a sentence or two. And if you feel like it's still a little too vague, then you should again add specifics about what makes it stand out or what makes it different from some of the other places. Because like you got to remember, like your organization, like you're going to be leveraging the experience from that organization to get you that new job, and like that's why I always urge caution when people are like try to like shit on their employers because it reflects on you. You know what I'm saying? Like if you are not impressed about you by your employer, why would I be impressed by your employer? Right. So like you got to kind of play a little bit of that game. And like in some cases, like when like whenever you like you want to move companies because like change of direction or like you realize that's a shitty company, I always say it's better to opt for like, oh, there was like a change in leadership, but prior to that, this was a great place to work, right? They did so many things, X, Y, and Z. It was so impressive, but this change in leadership and this change in direction is kind of taken away from that. And again, you don't want to downplay the employer too much because it can backfire on you. Mm. How do you demonstrate your impact if your current job doesn't lend itself to being quantifiable? For example, writing based jobs. Should you just focus on general accomplishments? So every single job is quantifiable, just straight up. Every single job is quantifiable because if not, they would easily fire you because they wouldn't be able to prove your value. You're a broadcast journalist, so the quantifiers are based around how many clicks, how many views, any awards that your work may have done, how many viewers, if it was like actual broadcast stream, how many channels it was on, how many times it was shared, what kind of prestigious awards may have been collected, right? It could even have been like on complex subject matter in itself. You know what I'm saying? Like there's always quantifiers. You could even be around the amount of articles you produced per week or the amount of clicks, or is it CPC, the amount of clicks per cost that you were able to generate. Like there's, you know what I'm saying? Like there's so much that can be held in the realm of like journalism. You work for a UK TV news channel. Um, I would then if it's a UK TV news channel, I would then reference what the size of the audience is, right? Whether or not you're getting stories on prime time, how many stories you featured on prime time, whether or not you were featured on like the evening news, prime news slots, whether or not you were featured on the front page of any of their like sister channels, things of that nature. Like again, there are always quantifiers, right? If like I said, if you don't have those specifics, you can fall back. Like for example, let's say the channel was BBC, right? You could say something along the lines of produced thought-provoking articles exploring the intersection of race and economics for BBC's 3.2 million viewers on a nightly basis. Like, boom, quantifier right there. Um, Hope that helps. Let's see how can I make this disappear? All right, one more question, and then we'll go on to the next resume. I got it loaded up. Questions about tenses. Should old experience be in a past tense, led excellent and current? Yes. So your tenses need to be consistent. If you are currently working at a place, unless you're specifically highlighting a project that has already passed, you need to write in the present tense, right? And anything that happened in the past tense, it happened in the past tense. Do not screw yourself over by talking about something that happened in 2006 as happening like today, especially if you haven't been at that job since 2006. All right, we will go to the next one. And as I said, folks, you got questions in the questions, answer them in the comments. We're gonna do two more resumes, and I'm gonna go back over into some of the questions that were submitted via the live stream screen. Okay, so we have a project coordinator, financial analyst resume. You already know how I feel about professional summaries at the top. And like, again, the first page is the most important page of your resume, and the first half of that page is the most important page of the resume. So, as the most important part of the resume, or the most important real estate of the resume. So, that is why I'm so against professional summaries, because like this space, like this, usually these are just so generic, they don't really do anything, right? And they're taking up the most valuable real estate off the resume. And then if we even go a bit further, right, I would have, if you wanted to put something there, again, I'll put like my top accomplishments across my whole entire career, rather than just like, you know what I'm saying, like just these generic sentences. Because even talking about how proficient they are in like Power BI and Oracle and ERP systems, that shit is literally repeated here throughout. So it's just a waste of space at that point. You are better off going through like your technical skills, or your, in this case, is this person's qualifications, and then jumping into your actual employment history. So when it comes to the qualifications, I just remembered I don't think I rated the last resume. Um, Give me 1 second. So that last resume is a 6. Sorry, I think I might have done that. Anyway, so yeah, these qualifications, I actually really like how they're set up. And I think this would have been a much stronger opening for the resume than this part. Let's see what we got here. So all of these super generic. If you are struggling to put like a quantifier, I need you to at least put the tools that you are using, and maybe highlight the type of stakeholders you're presenting to. But like, as somebody that is like a project coordinator, financial analyst, talking about budgets and not telling me, you know, how big the budgets are, or not telling me like what kind of timeline or deadlines you're expected to make, you know what I'm saying? It leaves a lot to be desired, right? Um, Led a major procurement transformation project, overhauling process to improve efficiency, compliance, and risk. This is a decent bullet, but again, no quantifier. So I don't know, like you say, major procurement transformation project. Like, I don't know what that really means. Like, what does major mean to you? Major to me might mean $100 million in budget for that transformation project. Major to you in this situation might be 50,000, right? So you've been better off talking about like how much was budgeted, how much of a budget was allocated to this specific transformation project, or even highlighting like the customer it was for, rather than just like, you know, just saying it vaguely like there. When it comes to like our resumes, folks, we want to be as detailed and specific as possible when it comes to the achievements. We want to avoid sounding very generic, right? If you are talking about a project, name the project and talk a little bit about what it was trying to accomplish or what it did accomplish, right? Stats, people affected, who benefited, if you got any recognition for it, all those things are super important, right? Um, you talk about your KPIs here, and it's ironic because there are no KPIs in this block here. And like, if you are going to talk about metrics, you need to talk about what those metrics were, right? Um, you need to talk about what those metrics were, per se, in order to kind of, again, establish that impact and that consistency. Um, And it's kind of like the same story. Like the template is actually really, really nice. I really do enjoy it. And you didn't scrub the resume totally. So I won't sit too long on where on the information. Here, this is exactly what I'm talking about, right? Here is exactly what I'm talking about when when I say like I want actual stats, right? Give me dollars, give me timelines, right? Give me total amounts, right? These two bullet points are the best bullet points in the entire resume, right? You completed a big data project for Broussard's office using Excel, recovering over $75,000 in receivables to the university. Brilliant. I love that. $75,000 is a lot of money, right? Tracked and analyzed accounts receivables using Great Plains and Excel. Great use of the technologies for over 200 franchisees, ensuring accurate financial reporting. Brilliant again, right? Now I know what technology you used, and now I know the scope of how you've used it, right? So, and then you have the Edge certification there. So another thing I said too, if you are going to commit to going to 2 pages, my bad. You gotta try to use as much of that white space as possible, right? And anything that's older than 5 years, you can kind of just trying to squeeze through. Anything that's older than 5 years, you kind of done. You didn't put too much emphasis on the bullet points here, but I think with some tweaking, you can definitely get this down to 1 page easily. I would give this resume, I'd give this another 6. Maybe a 6.5 because I really like the template and the formatting. But like again, the lack of actual quantifiers does leave a lot to be desired. Um, so I will so you have to email the resume to me, to this particular inbox, and I'll have some more posts going up so people can send them over. Like I said, we have 30 plus resumes, so even like there's no rush. Like if you send in your resume today, chances are we're not going to get to it, but we will get to it on a future episode. Just again, please make sure you scrub the information. Like you can put your first name, but like I don't want to see your address. I don't want to see your phone number. I don't want to see your email. I don't even want to see your LinkedIn, to be real with you. If you're gonna put your first name, put an alias. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't know if your employers be watching as well. Most awkward thing is for a recruiter to be the one that baits you out to let your employer know that you're sprucing up the resume and you may be in the market. If you have a petty employer, they will do everything they can to make your life a complete living hell. So always just keep that in mind. Okay, we're gonna do one more resume, and then I will get to some of the questions that are in the chat. Please do not be shy. Ask away your questions, and we will get to you. So this one is Clarice. I'm gonna guess that this is a message to me, not the employers. Oh, these are 2 career questions. All right. I want to do UI design and or creative project management. What roles under the UI UX umbrella besides UX writing am I overlooking that I can be applying for with my communications and branding experience? Are there any specific tech sub industries that are a good fit for or need people with comms and branding experience? So, Clarice, if you are watching, I would say that to answer your first question, um, if you are somebody with a strong foundation in writing more than anything else, which it seems like you are, I would say you would want to look at like email marketing or product marketing management as potential avenues. There's also content writing as well. But like, if I'm being real with you, content writing has taken a unfortunate hit right now. I think it's going to pick up again, but like this whole AI surge has people thinking like, oh, yo, I don't need content writers as much as before. But like, as anyone that's told you of like using AI to produce content, it's garbage, right? So I would say marketing, copywriting, product marketing management, lifecycle management, email marketing would all be really good places, just based off of these first 2 questions. Are there any specific tech sub industries that are a good fit or need people with comms and branding experience? Startups, specifically deep tech startups. Deep tech startups are startups that have a product that is extremely complicated, overly complicated in a lot of aspects. And it's hard for the average person to understand. So they rely on good branding and marketing experts to simplify their message and make it something that's easily digestible for the general public and also for investors that have a lot of money, but maybe not the strongest technical acumen, right? So I would say you would want to check out those. You can start by looking at incubators in your city. There are a lot of incubators. Um, there are a lot of incubators in all across the world or accelerators to kind of look for opportunities. Okay, jumping into the resume proper. So you see how some of the resume has kind of like come down into like this line. Even though like y'all know I don't like professional summaries, so it's whatever. But this is why you always send your resume as a PDF format because sometimes like when like it's placed on like a viewer, you don't know how the format is going to be adjusted or how it's going to be altered just because of just how doc files really work, right? When it comes to the skills are decent. Instead of having them coming down vertically, though, see how you have all this white space here? It would be better just to like move them aside. I would even say like you can put all three of these horizontally and close this gap, minimum like maybe even taking away a page and making like it easier to skim through the resume. The technology competencies, same thing. Like you might even be able to combine these two sections and maybe remove some that apply and kind of make it like one set. Experience plus results. I like that. It kind of sets up the tone, right? Just gonna zoom in a little bit more. Drives increase employee engagement for consistent content across all delivery streams by leading Bay Care's medical group's internal comms and editorial strategy, achieving an average open rate of 43% for the monthly team membership newsletter. This is a decent one. This is a decent one. A couple points I would add is that I probably would highlight what particular streams these are, whether they're email, social media, like your ConvertKits, your Mailchimps, etc. And I would also have so if we're going internal comms, I would just list how many employees are there, so we know how many people potentially could be opening the newsletter. But this is a decent point. Um, Develops content strategy, voice, and brand for BMG internal site by collecting, analyzing, implementing relevant user stakeholder feedback, SEO tagging, data pioneering, user experience for internal users, leading to an average homepage visit. This is a good point too. Time-based. Really, I really like that. The bullet point is the bullet points are a bit long. I'm not gonna lie. So I think you can tighten it up just a little bit, but I do like the ending off with this particular quantifier right here. Some time-based quantifiers, some of my favorite quantifiers. Partners with marketing department needed. That's a little general. I don't think we really need that. Spearheaded the UI UX design strategy, internal comms, authoring accessible custom layout templates, pioneering a first of its kind UX standard document to support 50 BMG site authors. See, this is a good one too. I like how you use absolute numbers to kind of give a sense of the scope. Again, just a little bit long in the tooth, so I would kind of like maybe reduce it by like 20, 30%. Going to your next, co-led the Marcom. This is a really good one. Again, absolute numbers. So what I'm and the rest are kind of this one's actually really good too because you talk about the specific marketing assets, but a lot of this is a bit vague. Like even talking about the CHPC Facebook account, you can talk about how much on average the ad spend was, right? For it, but like you got some really good bullet points here. Um, Again, a bit long in the tooth, and there isn't much in terms of context around like your impact, but there is right here. Sorry, It's 1 a.m. over here. But there is some right here, achieving an average engagement under 2+ minutes for new visitors and nearly 7 minutes for returning users. I think that is a great point for SEO and Google Analytics. Um, Clarice, if you're watching this, I would also say you should look at growth hackers or growth marketing as a potential avenue as well. Upheld and promoted a cohesive brand voice, visual design, reputation, and development throughout the new site. This is a bit generic. Develop compelling content for more than 150 warriors. Oh, Wounded Warrior Project. That makes sense. You got me thinking about the movies Warriors. You know, with the whole like bottle thing. Showing my age right now. Um, delivering more than 150 words, bolster the brand marketing online. This is a good bullet point. Um, Other professional experience. This is all right. So we're at 3 pages. We got your master's, any education, and like I said, a lot of blanks. So you can easily tighten this up and get it on 2 pages. So this is an interesting resume in the sense that um, I think this may be one. This is a really bad template. But some of the content here is really good. I like several of the bullets. They had quantifiable values, and like my biggest thing, and I think the biggest mistake people make when it comes to quants is that they're so quick to rely on percentages. And again, you don't want to be over relying on percentages. And I like that. I think there was only like 1% bullet point throughout this whole entire resume. Everything else was an absolute number or time based. So it was a good, healthy mix. So I'm going to give this a 7, right? Awful, awful, awful template. Like pretty good writing though. Okay. I'm gonna load up the next one, but as I promised, we are going to open the floor to some questions, both that were sent over for the forums, and also Izzy has been going off in the chat. I appreciate you, Izzy. So Izzy was laid off, and you're struggling to structure your approach to job searching. Can you suggest the best way one can use their current free time to find a new job, like an ideal productivity day or week? Um, I find that jobs go up on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So I would say if you have limited time or you're just being very mindful of your energy distribution, you would want to go around those days. For like the Monday and whatnot, try the top of the day. For Fridays, try look at towards the end of the days. Because like as a recruiter, you know, the way I was trained is that you want to use the weekend as a way to like gather candidates, because like in a traditional sense of like the market, uh, people aren't like ideally people aren't applying for jobs at their job, right? And I made a tweet yesterday about, yo, the first law of job searching is to not do it on your company equipment. So people aren't necessarily looking for jobs at their jobs. Oh, and of course, like if you're laid off, you have time, right? So you're not necessarily working. But I would say the recruiter like recruiters post jobs throughout the whole entire week, but Monday is usually when jobs go up a lot just to start the week. Wednesdays as well, and Fridays because we're trying to like get stuff over the weekend. I would say in any job board that you go on, LinkedIn, Indeed, Well Found, you always filter out opportunities by that were posted within the last 24 to 48 hours. Just because of how crazy the market is right now, you want to make sure you're one of the first 50 to 100 people to send in your resume. And then Izzy again, back to back, like Shaq and Kobe. If you could do 5 things tomorrow to start your job search journey, what would those things be? Um, First thing I would do would be to um, so I'm gonna go a little bit advanced here, but one of the first things, one of the first things I would do is I would set up RSS feeds on some of my favorite companies, so that I'm always notified when they upload new jobs. There are a bunch of RSS feed programs and like data scraping programs that will always send you like something like similar to like a Google alert when a company's website has a change. And I would sync that with the company's job boards and specifically highlight to the jobs that that I would be looking for. The next thing I would do is that of those companies, I would try to find 3 to 5 people per company to reach out to, and I would ask them for advice, like, "Yo, y'all not hiring right now, but just out of curiosity, if I saw a job that I wanted to apply for, what advice would you give me to make my application stand out? Like, what should my cover letter say? Should it emphasize the company's mission? Should it emphasize the company's tech? Should it emphasize the company's personnel? Like, what do they really value there? And do you think if I message the hiring manager directly, like from what you've heard, do you think that would be a good idea, right? And I would do that multiple times for multiple people at multiple companies. The next thing that I would do is then I would then set up job alerts, LinkedIn, Indeed, and Monster. I don't put much stock in those per se, but I still would do that as a best practice. Four is then I would ready my resume, and I would also ready my cover letter. So I like to write out like a trick that I've been helping people with is that we write out a cover letter together, and we make it sound really personal. We make it sound like really human, and there's always like a angle to go at, right? Some people they want to emphasize like what their unique value proposition is or what their specific niche is, right? Other people they want to like advertise like they're very mission focused, right? Some people want to advertise their stats and some people want to advertise their fandom, and some people do all 4 of those variations. But when you have that core functionality down, what you then can do is that you can bring up Chat GPT or Claude, whatever have you, and you can literally copy and paste the job description into the Chat GPT, give it your resume template and say like I want you to, without changing more than 5% of the language here, I want you to customize a cover letter for this job description. Customize this cover letter for the job description. And just to be sure that we're on the safe side, I'll then open up Chat GPT 0, and then I'll copy and paste it into GPT 0 to make sure that it gives me a human sounding rating. And then I'm going to be going on my job search, applying, networking, but also trying to keep myself busy by trying to like do projects or some things I can add to my repertoire. Might have a portfolio that I'm also trying to like get feedback on as an excuse to get networking on. But like those would be the 5 things that I would use to get out the door. I hope that answers your question, Izzy. You'll keep asking the questions, bro. I appreciate you so much. Okay. Another question from a good friend who wished to be anonymous. I'm so glad I read that before I said their name. I recently started a new job and I'm now seeking employment somewhere else. The company is not a good fit. I would love to know how I can justify or describe my experience at a new job where processes and lack of decision making have made progress and growth difficult. There are too many decisions being backtracked, so I'm not coding enough to feel like I'm progressing. So, this is a really good question, and this is hilarious. This is a really good question, and it's a good question because it's something that happens all the time. I don't think I need to tell anybody how uh, like what a bait and switch is. Basically, like they interview that there's something else, and then when you get there, you realize that it's a shit show because they can't hide behind the curtain anymore. And there are 2 ways you can go about this. The first way is if you decide to start your job search early enough, and I'm saying within the first 60 days, you don't even put it on your resume. You just say that you left your other position and, for whatever reason, you can cite maybe a layoff. You can cite that, you wanted some time to develop your skill set and you were hunkered down. You can say that you wanted to spend time with family, whatever. There are a lot of different reasons for like why you may have done why you wanted to leave. But if you are searching for a new job under 60 days of under 90 days, I should say, of like starting a new one, just leave it off your resume. If you are 90 days into the job, 90 days over, then I would add it to your resume because you passed probation and like it's 3 months. Like it's almost a full quarter at that point. Um, and so yeah, it's almost a full quarter at that point. So what I would do in that situation when people ask me like, why are you looking for somewhere new? I would say to them, I'm looking for a new organization because um, the one that I like essentially what you just said um in your resume. Like I'm looking for a new organization because um the way that the organization was presented isn't how it is in actuality. Or you can make it more internal of saying like the organization I'm at has made it clear that they only want me to use one part of my skill set, and I'm looking for an opportunity where I can use my full scope of my skill set, because pushing myself to my limit is what's going to facilitate growth. My favorite one is always just to blame a change in leadership. Like, I got there and everything was great, and then my manager left, or like my manager left, or the CEO of the company changed, and the way the company is handling or progressing through, certain decision making processes have been totally revamped, and it's conflicting, with how I go about things, and how I go about things X, Y, Z, and they want to do things A, B, C, right? So those are usually my three go-tos when trying to explain short stints. Um, if they're like, there have been times where one of the jobs I left. So in 2019, I changed job 3 times. My first job, I asked for a raise from 53,000 to 60,000. They wouldn't give it to me, so I went somewhere else, and they gave me 65 of that new job. But like 3 days into the new job, they asked me to stop talking black, and I was just like, oh God, yo, I can't stay here. That is a wild thing to say to somebody before even like the first paycheck. Like, bro, we still in the first week. You know what I'm saying? And like the Raptors just won the championship. So like we all went out to the parade. So like it's really only been 2 days. It's been 2 days. You're asking me to talk less black. So I was interviewing, and anytime I like had an interview with like say a black recruiter or a black hiring manager, and they're like, yo, why do you want to leave so soon? I'd be like, I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. And I would tell them the story, and they'd be like, oh, whoa, nah, yeah, I see it. But that's only if I had like certain chemistry with them. Otherwise, I'm using the former three. And it was the change in leadership making this job not a good fit for me anymore. It was what I used to get my job in Montreal, when I ended up moving from Toronto to Montreal, and I went from 65 to 85,000. And like again, if money is your priority, it is always in your best interest to job hot. In the span of a year, I went from 53,000 to 65,000 to 85,000, which is a crazy jump. That allowed me to move out of my mama's house, right? And you know what I'm saying? Like you don't go backwards. So just some food for thought, and thank you for sharing that. Okay, I'm gonna do one more question, then we'll jump back into the resumes. Uh, I am trying to switch careers from teaching into tech. I am qualified on paper, but lack experience in the industry. Confidence is low. So this person specifically is trying to get into business analytics, and they've had a lot of business analytics in experience, and they're trying to figure out how to go into tech, and they feel like that lack of industry experience is going to get them. So for this, I would say tech is everywhere, and like there is a lot. Like if you're doing a tech job in a non-tech sector, you should just look for that tech job in the tech sector. It's not you don't have to like psych yourself out of it, is what I'm trying to say. There are also a lot of subdomains within tech. And if you're someone that is doing a tech job in education and you want to work in a tech, what you should do is to look at ed tech, right? Educational technology, for example. There are two sites that I love to use when comes to like being informed about the ed tech industry. Excuse me, too much chatting, too much yapping. Um, the two sites that I would look for education technology information or jobs would be EdSurge, EDSURGE.com, and edtech.com. Both those are great heliocentric sites for all your information on the edtech industries, but also they have really good job boards. So to that person, that is how I would go about it if I were in your shoes. Just be looking for like edtech opportunities and not overthink it too much. All right, let's jump back into some resumes. All right. This person has completely scrubbed their resume. I love it. Um, it's a very straightforward resume template, one page as well. Let me just say this. Let me just say this too. There is nothing wrong with a traditional, for lack of a better word, boring resume template. Sometimes those are actually, a lot of times, those are like the most effective because um, a as you as the writer, it forces you to put all the meat and potatoes into the actual content, which is what matters most. And B, it doesn't distract the reader, which is also a super important thing. You want the reader to be engaged with the actual template while sorry, with the actual resume and not be distracted by like, oh, pretty colors, or like, if you get someone like me that's got ADHD, like all it takes is like a little like squirrel to distract me. So you want to make sure that you can get the person to lock in on the information more than anything else. So one thing I will note, the skills table that we have here at the bottom, this should be at the top. Again, the skills table here sets up, like if I'm looking for specific skills, keywords, in my search or in a resume, having this at the top allows me to just do a quick scan to see what I'm looking for. Now, if I'm looking for like a content copywriter or someone to help me with marketing, for example, I'm going to want to know that you've done copywriting. I'm going to want to know that you've done community engagement. I'm going to want to know that you've done content strategy. I'm going to want to know that you've done social media tools and data analysts and content creation. So like having that allows you to be like lock in and be like, all right, this person's got what I'm looking for. And then now I'm going to be looking for how the context of how you use those particular skill sets in this actual resume in itself. So this person here spearheaded comprehensive social media strategies for clients, managing content across multiple platforms, including X and LinkedIn. I don't know why, but I refuse to call the platform X. This is Twitter. That's what his mama called it. You call it Twitter. Um, you put X and then Twitter in brackets. I'm just being picky. Resulting in a 35% increase in follower engagement. So this is an okay bullet point. When it comes to utilizing percentages, my rule remains the same. You always want to make sure you have proper context to like support it. And sometimes you can just do that with words. Other times it's like using another quantifiable. So like if you said resulting in a 35% increase in follower engagement, leading to a total follower count of 100,000 across the two platforms, I think that would have strengthened it quite a bit. Because again, it could be 35% of 100,000. It could be 35% of 100, which is just 35 people. So you kind of want to be specific so that you're giving your proper props here, right? Oversee editorial calendars and coordinate publication processes to align with brand campaigns, ensuring timely and relevant content. I would say it would have been great to either have an absolute number around how many editorial calendars there actually were, or how many brand campaigns, um, or who the brand campaigns were with here. And just before I move on, really good question. Where would you squeeze in the company overview in this resume? So I would. So one of the first things that's also missing from here is just a role overview. So like I would make two spaces, right? And then I would have right exactly underneath the millennial consultant, I would have the company overview. And then underneath the company overview, and let me just say this too. When I write company overviews, I always italicize them, like command I, right? Just to make them easier to like separate from the actual experience, and then I'd have the role overview of like what it is that you actually do at this company. So to answer your question, Izzy, it's in between the title, the company name, and then the job title. um So cultivate relationship with influencers and community advocates. So here I would actually list out the influencers specifically, or at least like my top three influencers. Um, at least my top three influencers with the biggest following to like present myself as like, working with like some of the big dogs, right? Uh Charisse, I hope I'm saying that right, because that's my sister's name, but she spells it differently. Would it be best to have a company overview for each experience? Yes, it would. Unless space becomes an issue. This is a one-page resume, so I like, and there's like, and if you move the skills up at the top, I think we're good. But yeah, generally speaking, you'd want, if you're doing something for one job, you got to do it for all jobs. Unless like you start getting to the end of the resume and the experience is older, then you can kind of like lessen the details. But at least for like those first couple of jobs, you definitely want to make sure that you're saying it, you're having it consistently. Um, so yeah, uh, for influencers, you would want to name your influencers and maybe even highlight like collectively how many followers they have. Implement data-driven insights to create content that resonates with technical and developer communities, driving a 20% growth in digital engagement. This is good. This is a good one. This is a decent one. I think the context around it is actually pretty strong. Execute social listening strategies, monitoring feedback and industry trends to shape real-time engagement, and improve content strategies by 25%. Generic. This is generic here, because like, what does this mean? You improve content strategies by 25%. How do you improve a content strategy by 25%? Are you talking about you improve the amount of content, like improvement in content strategies led to an increase of content deliverables by 25%, or led to a decrease in the time it took to ship out content by 25%? Like, but this ain't really clear here. Like, I'm a bit confused. So it just reads a bit generic. Um, we go to the next one. Lead contents driving 50% increase in donor engagement and 40% uplift in social media interactions across the three channels. So this is a foundation. I think what you could have done here is just, again, if it's an increase in 50%, you would help. It would help to like talk about what the final number in itself would have been, just to give more context around that. Um, Again, same here. If you're going to talk about like increasing subscribers or followers, that's great. It's good 10%, but I want a whole number to properly contextualize what this 10% means. Um, Craft and oversee budgets, goal campaign, contribute. This is good. This dollar bills, y'all. Like, this is really good right here. This $17,528. Good amount, absolute number, dollar value. I'm able to completely quantify it. Develop and execute innovative quality new quarterly newsletter, driving a 1,600 increase in email subscribers and strengthening donor relations. There are two things you could have done here. One is that you could have talked about the absolute number of um, email subscribers that happen, or two, you could have outlined, by strengthening those donor relationships, how much money your donation did that lead to, which I feel like you're lacking here. Um, Analytic tools, kind of the same thing here when you're using percentages. So folks, I hope you're seeing what I mean by like, if you're going to use percentages, you got to make sure you have the context sandwich around the percentage to make sure that the percentage comes off as useful, informative, and like it has the proper context. Because without it, it sounds very bare. Again, like a dad joke that my dad used to say that I've been like saying in like a lot of my streams is like, he used to prove a point of how useless stats were. He used to say to me, oh, 50% of the doctors who graduate were in the bottom half of their class. And it's just like, nigga, what? You're like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. But then, what I'm saying? It's to prove the point that like percentages can mean anything if they have the correct or incorrect context surrounding them. And it's how people perceive them. So just keep that in mind. Um, Develop and manage content for Instagram, growing the church is falling by 400%. This is a good number. Still would have preferred the absolute numbers. And I feel like there's an over reliance on um, uh sorry, is he UK? I feel like there's a bit of an over reliance on the percentages here. I would like to see more absolute numbers or dollar values, but overall, I think this is actually a good resume. Um, Again, a little bit over reliant on the percentages, but like we do have some a bit of a mix here in some cases in some of the experience. So yes, yes. Uh, I'm not sure if you could see it, but you're also kind of writing in code. So I wasn't sure what you were saying, but yeah, dollars, percentages, raw numbers, rankings, ratios, um, all are really great quantifiers. I see that you're on Twitter. If you send me a tweet, I'll actually send you. I'll tag you in a video that I put up a couple of weeks ago talking about the different examples of quantifiers that you could use. Um, that outside of like those three, there's tons more. But overall, I would say that this resume is about a 7.5. Um, Good format, good template, strong use of numbers. Um, uh, it's just a little bit over reliant, but like the direction that it's going, and also for like a marketer, like you're gonna have a lot of percentages regardless. But again, you want to make sure the proper context around them is strong. Okay, let us load up the next resume. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to answer a few more questions that we have in the chat. Hello, Bria. Nice seeing you again. How do you boost context around percentages of numbers after you left the company and no longer have access to data insights? So, if you have the percentages and the numbers, especially as like a marketer, for example, a lot of like the percentages would be based around, like, let's say again, if we're going off for a marker off like the last resume, um the follower accounts would be public, right? If you have an idea of the companies that your old employer might be partnered with, that information is also public as well. You can reference the size of those companies. You can reference how much money the company was earning. There's a lot of public, especially if they're publicly traded, there is like a lot of information on the company itself that you can use and get to add context and to those percentages and numbers. So if it's like, looking at the marketing resume, for example, um, you know, increased marketing initiatives on social media platforms by 35%, you can have that as the default. But then if you say something along the lines of like, if you added across companies channels where total followers add up, accumulative followers add up to 3 million, right? That's additional context. So it's there is a phrase called open source intelligence, OSINT, and it basically means um, looking and finding and understanding where to look for publicly available information to inform yourself on certain initiatives that you want to do. Using OSINT initiatives or like skill sets can go a real long way for you, like helping out your resume. I'm gonna be like to give y'all a little insight on my next newsletter that's coming out on the 5th of October. I dive a little bit into open source intelligence, and how to use it for your job search, how to use it to build out your resumes, how do you even use it for your interviews. So like you can freak out the interviewer. I remember one time because I went on a little rabbit hole and I just wanted to look up everything I could about a CEO. I was able to tell him his mama's name. I didn't get the job. It was very awkward after that. So I was like, "Oh yeah, how's your mom's name? Your mom's name is Jackie, right? My mom's name is Jackie too." And like it was, this guy was like, "Where where did you get that information?" And I had to tell him that he put it out on a blog back in like 2007. This is 2020, and he's like, "Why were you reading blog posts from 2007?" And it was just awkward after that. So be careful. But like, yeah, open source intelligence is like a really, really good way to like inform yourself. It is think of it as both like um a strategic approach, because it's not like it's all in like an app. It's like a series of actions that get you results to allow you to just be informed and strategic in any situation that you go into. Hope that answers your question, Bria. And I think you were in the last stream or two, so I appreciate you for making the return. Okay. One more question from the questionnaire, and then we'll move on to this resume. This person didn't ask a question. So this person asks, how do I obtain an IT role with transferable skills? How to leverage skills obtained through independent projects to quantify the value I'll bring to an organization while being new to a particular role. So I guess this person wants to get an IT job and they've been doing independent projects and they're trying to figure out how to quantify the value so that they can articulate it on the resume or in an interview. So part of the reason why I whenever I say like do your own projects, and I always say the word consulting, is partly because of this. So when it comes to like your own projects, they're good to do and it gives you like a really strong foundation. But like the thing that people have to like get into practice mode with is that they specifically should talk about like projections on like what they project or were aiming for this project to be able to do. Like, one person that I used to I worked with actually for one of his like self-driven projects. He built an app where you were able to put the latest strain of marijuana that you smoked, and it would recommend different strains to you, and even I think leveraging like weed maps point you to a dispensary that actually had that strain in stock, that was nearest to you. And he didn't really like launch it publicly, but he was saying, but like the way that he quantify it was to talk about the emotional investment that gets into just like being able to contribute to a certain lifestyle, and then reducing the time it would take to find that online, right? So he was projected to save the average user anywhere from 2 to 3 hours searching for that particular strain. And that is like how you would kind of articulate a self-driven project on your resume. However, again, that is just a projection. You are better off going out into the world and finding people to collaborate, whether they're small business owners, whether they're influencers that are trying to like get their following up, whether it's other people trying to build stuff. Like, you're better off doing that so that your self-driven projects aren't just like siloed into like what you're able to do in your own little bubble, but like you have other stakeholders in touch, and it makes it more real and more credible. But like if you do stuff that's interesting enough, people will still give you a blight. People will still like rate you for it. So, don't sleep on that too much. Okay. So we are going to go to the next one. Excuse me. Okay. How do I? Give me 1 second, folks. I want to see. This person did not completely scrub the resume. Okay, so I just want to make sure that we're not exposing anybody. All right. Here we go. Okay, so next resume. Y'all already know how I feel about the professional summaries. I do like these technical skills, really good, really unique. I'm not the biggest fan of having Microsoft Office Suite as like a technical skill. I feel like everybody knows how to use Microsoft Office Suite, and like, what I'm saying, like it's kind of like a little bit of like a waste of a skill set, but like in the grand scheme of things, there's a lot of really good stuff here. So like that's just me nitpicking. Let me go to the actual experience. So I always want to say like it is always important to have bullet points or arrows just kind of separating the actual information, because it leads the eyes and makes it easier to read. This is a 2-page resume, doesn't use a full 2 pages. So yeah, I think that's also something to be mindful of. So this person is looks like they doing SAP solutions, currently at Under Armour. This first arrow point isn't as descriptive as I would like, but this one right here is golden. Led 10 major SAP implementation projects by encompassing system testing, user training, and change management, resulting in successful go live and minimal disruptions to business ops with a 20% cost reduction. I love that. I don't think this person needs to add the like additional context, because they led with an absolute number. So like it feels pretty whole. This arrow point way too vague. This one is way too vague. And this one is kind of good right here. Um, but I feel like what they would have been better if they actually like detailed what those test plans specifically were. If you're ever worried about like putting sensitive information on your resume, and you're afraid of like who might see it, um, or like don't put it on. Like you can put it on, of course, be mindful, but like don't put it up on like say an Indeed or a Monster where that shit's going to be easily available for the public to see. Always make sure you're submitting it directly to the employer. Every employer, every ATS has privacy laws, so like that in itself will protect you from it being leaked. If somebody knows your employer and decides to snitch on you, I believe you may have legal recourse depending on what province or state that you're in. So keep that in mind. Um, so the other stuff here, I would say, um, don't have much to do with a lot of the stuff here. So I think the client support at Macy's is fine. Um and like that could stay because that does play into the SAP solutions, but like um and I also do think some of the supply chain inventory stuff is good. Um I can't say so much about the assortment merch planner or the merchandise assistant. So what I would actually probably end up doing here would be consolidating the experience all into one from 2016 to 2021, essentially, and just saying you're a client support specialist and just listing the promotions as achievements in of themselves, in addition to like the client support specialist stuff. And by doing that, I think you'd be able to reduce the resume from a 1.5 page where it kind of feels incomplete to a full 1 page resume. It would also allow you to give more details here with the SAP stuff to kind of make it a bit more complete. But like the actual arrow points themselves, I think some of these are really good. You have like a really good mix here. We're talking everything from dollar values to absolute numbers. I like again, just be careful of like repeating percentages as well. It makes it very repetitive. And this stuff here, you don't even need to put like it doesn't really do anything for the resume, so you can just completely scrap it. And you can easily consolidate this. So hmm, I think I would give this resume 6.8, right? A little consolidation and a little bit more rewriting of some of these error points, and I think it'd be good to go. But if you like, the other thing I'll say is like it's 2024. We are closer to 2025 than we are to the top of 2024. So like you've been at UA for quite a bit. So I think that you can definitely give more details onto some of the successes and the stuff that you've been working on. Um, Especially in comparison to that Macy stuff, to make this like a full, strong, full page, 1 page resume. But yeah, 6.8, very close, but not exactly where it needs to be. And I'm just gonna load up the next resume as well. And this person really blacked it out. Okay. So we are coming up on time. I appreciate y'all for sticking with me. I know like you could be doing anything in the world, but you're here with me. I don't know who said that. I know it's from a song. Who said that? Was it Kanye or was it Jay? It doesn't even matter. Anyway, we have this will be the last resume I review, and then I will be taking questions in the chat, or I will take questions with the from the live stream forums because we still have a few to go through. Um, Kanye West, thank you. No, it was Jay-Z. Jesus, y'all are confusing me now. You could be anywhere in the, okay, I'll figure it out later. So first things that I noticed again, we have a resume that has all this blank space at the bottom. But I think we have enough experience where you can either push it down or you could cut it. Um, y'all know how I feel about, excuse me, sorry, it's 2 a.m. over here. Y'all know how I feel about professional summaries. Not the biggest fan. I do like that there's a hyperlink to the portfolio itself. So good job, Cassandra, there. Hyperlinks are really good. Do not, it is Izzo. Thank you. Um, Hyperlinks are good. Don't sleep on hyperlinks. Um, I, yeah, I'm not the fan of the professional summary. I kind of hesitated because I think it's interesting that this person is highlighting AI powered tools, but like it pops up here in the core competency. So this part really wasn't needed. Going into the experience in itself, um, this is okay, but a bit generic. Develop and manage global editorial calendars, ensuring consistent brand voice across markets while driving a 25% increase in employee engagement. I think this is a decent bullet point, but it's a bit bare and vague. Again, adding like a year over year to compare it to what it was last year, maybe with like a ranking or like a ratio or some sort of other quantifier would really be helpful. And just maybe even adding how many employees were there, how many employees were part of that survey helps. If you're going to mention AI powered stuff, I think you should mention the specific tools. AI is super generic at this point. Like just the phrase AI, it can mean so many different things. It can mean Perplexity, it can mean Chat GPT, it can mean Claude, it can mean Copilot, it could mean some internal system that is just basically API, OpenAI's API wrapped up in like internal branding. Like could mean anything. So be a bit specific when you are going to drop the AI stuff. And if you are going to talk about channels, maybe talk about what some of those channels are. You know, social social media, above the line, below the line, that type of stuff. Lead cross-functional projects with senior execs and ERGs. I think you should either outline what those projects are or what those changes were. Like, was it an increase in employee retention among BIPOC or marginalized groups, or was it an increase in representation in talent pipelines? Right. All different ways that you could have gone about that. And if so, like how much are we talking about? You present data-driven strategies and KPIs, outline the KPIs, right? Outline the KPIs and then allude or just straight out talk about what those impacts were on business objectives. I think as a DEI specialist as well, because of the scrutiny DEI has come under, not even just from like a political standpoint, but like from an investment standpoint where people feel like they don't see the ROI. I think it's super important for people that are in the DEI or HR space to always, when they're quantifying their stuff, to link it back to like what the business outcome is, right? That helps set you apart. And that helps kind of also communicate that you understand that DEI is just as valuable as a business investment as well as like a social cause, right? It's not just a vanity project. So be careful with that. Um, I like the content strategist approach that you have here for WebMD. I love the 500 plus monthly searches, and you see what I'm saying? Like this is a really strong bullet point, right? Again, when like, I think if you're going to mention AI powered SEO tools, I think mentioning the tool itself and the name of the tool would be really helpful. But nonetheless, I think this is a really strong bullet point. And I kind of wish it was repeated in this, like that approach was repeated in this bullet point as well. Pioneer DEI initiatives to enhance representation in health content, addressing gaps and biases across. This is a very strong one as well. Love it. Champion the creation of content creation practices, achieving C2A1 compliance. Really good here too. I know that this isn't really a quantifier because it's a type of compliance code, but like, so when like there's a specific technical skill or specific niche skill, like compliance codes, for example, it could be also the accounting codes. I feel like that is really good as well. It helps you stand out significantly. Um, these are percentages, so we want to be careful here. I feel like using a double percentage is doesn't like really like add enough context. I think an absolute number plus a percentage is a really good thing here. Maybe maybe you could keep the two percentages here, but maybe talking about like again how many followers on social media or how many engagements, how many likes, how many posts, whatever, reshares, and how many like newsletter subscriptions, whether compared to last year or just like the raw number in itself. Develop and integrating marketing campaigns, improving content effectiveness, boosting conversions. Percentage or year over year would have been great here. Creating multimedia content, infographics, storytelling led to easier engagements. I think this is a good one. So not all bullet points need to have impact statements or quantifiers. This is a rare example of one that doesn't need it because we have the diversity of the type of content. For example, like this is a bullet point that Courtney, our broadcast journalist for the UK news channel, would be able to put in her resume. Because as a broadcaster, as like someone that works in broadcasting or comms, it's not even about like the click amount. It's not always about the the traffic that you drive. A lot of times it's about the multi skills you're able to deploy and the types of content you're able to produce, right? You got to be multi-skilled in those aspects. Led UX focuses content strategy initiatives. Yeah, shout outs to you, Cordy. Resulting in a 20% increase in prospect student engagement and applications. Little vague again. This one is very vague as well. That last bullet point. And kind of all of them except for this one here, increasing food diversity 4x, are all pretty vague. Now, I will say that if you were the experience here is pretty light, and I would say like if you were, I do like the 10 to 15 hour segment here. Um, if you were running out of space, I could understand, but because we have all this blank space here, I think it would have been better just to flesh out um, the experience here, maybe adding bullet points or even adding again a company overview or a role overview, and just making a bit more use of your space, especially getting rid of this would have helped tremendously. But overall, I think this is another 6.8 resume. Um, yeah, I think this is another 6.8 resume. Decent. A couple of bullet points are decent. The formatting is okay. And yeah, again, you just need to expand this part so that it flows really well. And like this, this space is just too much, in my opinion. Okay. I'm going to answer one more question from our questionnaires, and then we'll wrap up. If you have any last minute questions that you'd like to ask or you'd like me to answer, please say so in the chat. I'll make sure that I get to it before the end of the night. And we will conclude, and I'll let you know when the next one of these are. So someone's asking summary or no summary. How do I organize consulting gigs in a resume? If I was working for a small company, where or how do I explain what the company actually did and what I was in charge of there before getting into the bullet points? And what do you do if you don't remember specific quantifiable metrics from older positions? This is about 4 questions. So for the answer to the first one, no professional summary. I think I've gone over it about how much of a waste of space it is, so we can ignore that. How do you organize consulting gigs in a resume? So when it comes to consulting gigs in a resume, the way that I always write them is to write them underneath like my own vehicle or my own brand. So you basically write them as you would any other job. Like if I'm working at Google and then I'm a software consultant, some people may list out the individual engagements. I feel like that's a waste of space. So I would just list out my consultancy firm, wait, shit, why can't I do this? So I put like Jupiter HR, and then this is why company overviews are really good. I put Jupiter HR, explain what kind of consultancy it is, and then in the role overview, I would say like create customized websites for high level clients that are robust in the e-commerce space and across various industries. Key clients include, and then I would list the different clients throughout the separate gigs. And then I would go into the achievements, and I would like in the achievements, I would kind of highlight which company or which client this was for. Created a new website from scratch for Twitter, leading to an average of 500,000 plus visitors per month, and so on and so forth. Um, if you were working for a small company, how do you explain what the company did? Company overview plus a hyperlink to their website. Preferably the hyperlink should be hyperlinked in the name. So if you just like highlight the actual name of the company on your resume and click Command or Control K, you'll be able to just in Word, you'll just be able to like plug in the link and people can just click on the hyperlink and see it. But if they don't want to do that, you should have a company overview, 1 to 2 sentences that are italicized that explains what the company does, what industry that it's in. What else we have here? What do you do if you don't remember specific quantifiable metrics for older positions? Kind of answered this before, but I'll touch on it again. You use public information about the company that you can find to quantify the metrics, right? So if you worked on a team delivering newsletters and you don't know how many people you deliver the newsletter to, what I would have done is I would have gone on the company's social media website and I would have just added up all the social media followers and said like, built a company, like sent out company newsletter, and like supported social media campaigns for a collective following account of X, right, across these platforms. And that's a good way that you can kind of get around that. One more, we'll do one more. So some of these are not questions. How to effectively network, especially if there are small opportunities to do it in person. So when it comes to networking, the best thing that you can do is there are 2 things that you can do. One is to try and find ways to give value to the people that you're networking with, right? If you are an engineer or you make websites, try to offer a way to like help somebody with their website, whether it's optimizing it, upgrading it, whatever. And in some cases, don't be afraid to do things for free if the person is really somebody you want to network with. Always try to give value to people. Always try to answer the question of um, what does this person want and how can I help them get to that goal, right? The best thing about building your network is just finding ways to be helpful to people, right? If you can find ways to align your goals with others, you'll be invincible, which is why I'm always a big fan of like using the vehicle of consulting, right? Because it's straightforward. Like it's like, the impression is that like if you're a consultant, you want to get paid. And like if they're like, oh, I don't got the budget, you can be like, yo, I really fuck with what you do. Like I like your product, I like your service, like I like what the mission that you're trying to do, especially if it's like if that's super really true. You let me just help you out, and like next time you got something you got a budget, hit me up. Happy to help you. Happy to help you out there. You can return the favor. That goes a long way. The second element is genuinely being curious about people. If you want to be good at networking, be genuinely curious about people. And what that means is ask them about who they are, ask them about their history, ask them about what they do, ask about what they think. Ask about what they would do if they were giving absolute power in their company. If you were CEO at your company for 1 week, what would you do? Right? If you have a good rapport with them, may change that from what would you do to who would you fire? And you'll get some very interesting responses. But like, just be genuinely curious about people in their careers and just who they are as people. And when people tell you information, try to remember it. If you have a bad memory, HubSpot has a CRM, right? Get the person's contact information and then just put a little note about who they are in this CRM. And whenever they pop up on your phone or they pop up in an email, you can have context as to like who they are, why you're talking to them, and why things are so interesting. Um, but yeah, we went over time a little bit, so but like I appreciate y'all for like coming through. I'm gonna ask one more time. Are there any questions anyone wants to know in the chat? Say now or forever, or say now or hold your peace until the next stream. Q asks, how many resumes do we have left? We have 30 resumes. we have 30 resumes left. So we gonna be doing these for a little bit. I lied. Hold on. Some of these in the email are just junk mail. We have 27 resumes, 27. So we're going to do a few more of these. I may extend them for a little bit, may break them up into chunks. And remember, folks, I appreciate you coming in live. And the videos are uploaded to the YouTube as soon as they're available. So if you came in late or if you missed something, please, feel free to watch it. If you want to send in your resume for review, hold on. I don't know if I can. I'm going to see if I can post. If you want your resume for review, you can send it to support@jupiterhr.ca. I think that popped up on the YouTube stream, but support@jupiterhr.ca. This is how you spell JupiterHR, all one word, .ca, because I'm Canadian. And no, I do not know Drake. But yeah, I appreciate y'all for coming through today. It was a blast to do this with you and to continue to build community. If you would like to pay me back, I will say this. This is how you can pay me back for doing these. If you see an opportunity to help somebody, especially if you see an opportunity to help a Black person, whether it's with their career, whether it's just as a person to person, please pay it forward. And that's how we build community and make the world a better place. I know it sounds corny, but we are really all we got. So thank you again. And I will let y'all know when the next one is. And hopefully I see some of y'all again. I've seen some familiar faces. And again, that's how you build rapport and community. But until next time, peace and love.